Most streamers have a limit, a filter to their words. Even the biggest streamers, hundreds of thousands of viewers, millions of followers, viral moments, they all exist inside that limit. But then there's
Clavicular.
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 How's it going?
Mr. Icular, it's wonderful to have you on the show.
the fame, the attention, the constant rush of growing followers. For someone on the outside, it may look like a normal success story, but that is nothing like the story you're about to see. This story is much darker, because sometimes you seem to be on top of the world, and in just a blink, you're all the way at the bottom. Now every success story starts somewhere, and for Clav, it started at the very bottom. Braden Peters was born into a stable family. Sure, they weren't starving to sleep, but they also weren't eating 5-star meals every day. They were somewhere in the middle, and for someone diagnosed with neurodiversity and autism, this wasn't easy. But at school, the other kids didn't go easy on him either. Peter noticed that other kids were mean and sometimes bullied his classmates, so he chose to stay quiet. He felt, in his own words, ignored, overlooked, and undervalued throughout his upbringing, so much so that it would later lead to changes that would make him unrecognizable. And by the time he reached high school, that feeling hadn't changed, it had intensified. But one event was about to happen, an event that would change everything completely. He finally broke out of his comfort zone and talked to a girl he had a crush on. But instead of the yes he was expecting, he was brutally rejected without a second thought, and that brought back the familiar feeling of being undervalued, the feeling of being ignored for all those years. Something started to shift in his mind, almost like a line had been crossed. He realized he was nothing, and that if he didn't change anything, he might stay that way for the rest of his life. He needed to change. For the first time in his life, he realized he didn't want to be a normal kid. He wanted to be known, rich, and most importantly, he never wanted to experience rejection again. But how was this now 13-year-old kid going to accomplish these seemingly impossible dreams? Dreams that any reasonable person would have laughed at, and he knew exactly how. They say in order for something new to be born, something old must die. So in that moment, Peters decided to kill the old version of himself, to shut the doors and never let him come out. And that was the moment Braden Peters died. That was the moment he became Clav. What he didn't know at that time was this character, Clavicular, was about to flip the whole world upside down. At this point, Clav was 14 years old, still living with his parents. And from watching movies and observing the world around him, he came to a realization. He realized he was being ignored because he was ugly. He was nothing special. If he wanted to be noticed, he needed to be good looking, something out of the ordinary. And he thought the first step was building his body, so he hit the gym and stayed consistent. But after a few weeks, he wasn't seeing any progress, and like anyone else, he got frustrated, so he took it a step further. He started using steroids, but one day his parents found out, and just like any ordinary parents, they were concerned, so they took his Xbox away. But that didn't stop him. He wanted this, so he started ordering it in different boxes. But even that wasn't enough. Clav knew that if he wanted to be treated differently, he would have to change a lot more than just his body. When you grow up watching movies, TV shows, and romance films in Hollywood, a pattern starts to burn itself into your brain. The same faces, the same jawlines, the same men, perfectly sculpted, modeled here, nothing like the average guy you would see on the streets. And over time, that imagery starts quietly rewriting reality. Dating stops feeling random. Attraction stops feeling fair. A belief forms that only the top fraction of men matter, the top 10%, while everyone else fades into the background, feeling invisible, unwanted, replaceable. For Clav, this wasn't a theory, it was obvious. So he went after his face. He started bone smashing. There's no significant evidence proving that smashing your face bones makes your face more attractive. What is proven is nerve damage, facial fractures, asymmetry. But Clav didn't care, because at that point, pain felt better than being ignored.
I know it hurts, but that means it's working. That's the only indication. You have to push past the pain. Look at me.
Days turned into months, months into years, and visibly, there were changes, but not where he needed them the most. His dating life stayed the same.
I don't know where I'm going wrong, which is why it's so frustrating. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. And there's just no real way to be logical, and when you're texting these girls, there's no feedback system. They'll just stop texting you out of nowhere. Like, you'll just be texting a girl, having a normal conversation, just no reply. Casper the Ghost.
And that failure did something to him. It didn't discourage him, it rationalized him. The thought crept in, maybe I'm still not doing enough. Around this time, he was kicked out of college for steroid use, a breaking point for some people, but not for Clav. He didn't slow down, he doubled down, moving into streaming. Started posting about looks maxing, documenting his transformation, turning his body, face, identity into content, and something disturbing started happening. As he looked better, people watched more. As the views climbed, so did the validation. The algorithm rewarded the obsession. The cycle fed itself. Pain turned into process. Process turned into attraction. Attraction turned into identity. And by the time 2025 arrived, Clav wasn't just changing his appearance anymore. He was becoming something else entirely. And what happened next was something no one saw coming. On October 26, 2025, he uploaded a video of himself. It wasn't different from his usual content. Same format, same tone. Except this time he looked different, better, and people noticed. At first it was just his core fan base, but the numbers didn't stop climbing. Day by day, the growth accumulated, and days later, he was streaming with Eden Ross, and that opened the doors. But one collaboration would change everything. When he was invited onto Fresh and Fit, he looked just like another guest, ordinary, quiet, unassuming. But the second the show started, it became obvious this was far from the truth. Almost immediately, the chat locked in. Then came the moment when Clav brutally rated the girls. No filter, no hesitation, no concern for backlash. The chat exploded. Shock, outrage, clips. Within seconds, they were everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. It didn't slow down. Every clip went viral. Every appearance brought more followers. He made it onto the news. His name became unavoidable. It felt like everything he touched was turning viral. He started linking up with creators, Neon, Sneeko, and so much more. People couldn't get enough of him. This good-looking, unfiltered figure who seemed untouchable. He said what he wanted, did what he wanted. He pushed the bar higher than any streamer, saying things others wouldn't dare, being brutally honest when everyone else played it safe. Clav was going mainstream. But in the background, something darker was unfolding. He had a stalker, a random man who began showing up at his house, forcing Clav to stay armed just to protect himself. And it didn't stop there. It escalated. One day the guy would follow him to the mall. The next, he'd throw liquids on him in public. Every encounter pushed the line further, and Clav's patience was running out. Until one day, the stalker followed him while he was live, forcing him to get back to his car. At that moment, Clav had enough, not wanting it to turn into something worse. He tried to leave, but the man jumped on top of the hood of his car, and in that instant, Clav made an impulsive decision, a single press of a button, one that could have ended everything in a second. His career was at stake. He was banned on Kick, and suddenly, the reality hit. That man had died. Clav could have faced over 10 years in prison. For a few hours, everything went silent. Then it exploded. The news picked up on it. Reaction channels flooded in. Asmongold reacted, Eden Ross reacted. It looked like his career was over. But then, a few days later, he was unbanned on Kick. And this time, he came back with something new. Credibility. People knew now he wasn't just playing a character. He didn't bluff, and instead of falling off, he became bigger than ever, like nothing had happened. Now in 2026, it's clear that this isn't luck, it's a generational run. Even MrBeast himself predicted that Clav would be the next big name in streaming. Clav didn't start off at the top. He started off as a small, ignored kid, delusional enough to believe he could become something more. And maybe that's why he's here. Maybe that's why this feels different, because he's showing people what obsession, belief, and refusing to quit can actually turn into. People will hate, they always do, but he doesn't let that define him. And where he ends up next, no one knows. But one thing is certain, he gave everything to streaming, and that's more than most people watching ever will.